Good morning, BPS community. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's session as we advance our collective journey in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm joined by our own Hope Taylor, and Hope and I would like to welcome Paul and Nancy Thompson, senior statespersons for Barnstable for No Place for Hate and NAACP. Paul and Nancy describe themselves as happily retired educators from Boston.
Yes.
My hope is that the video that we are about to watch together, which is produced by Barnstable No Place for Hate, is an opportunity to listen to our youth. It's not meant to judge where we are on our journey, but rather to affirm that our work in diversity, inclusion, and equity is the right work at the right time as we work to create and sustain anti-racist schools. During the video, we will have the comment and chat function open, and we welcome your comments and questions during the video. At the conclusion of the video, we're going to spend about 10 minutes speaking with Nancy and Paul. Hope, would you like to say a few words and introduce Nancy and Paul?
If you want to do this one, I'll do the last.
Good morning, everybody. We're so lucky to have Nancy and Paul with us. We're also lucky to have the video that we're going to watch. The kids have actually bared their souls, and we've created safe places in our schools that they're allowed to, and they feel comfortable enough having those conversations with us. Listen with an open heart. Nothing in there is personal. We're just trying to make sure that we can get to the bottom of hearing what the kids hear, because the kids hear something totally different than what we hear during the school day. So I'm asking you guys, just open your heart and listen, and feel free to put things in the comment. We have Nancy and Paul, who are awesome since the day I met them. And Nancy and Paul, what do you have to say to our staff?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Well, we're Paul and Nancy Thompson, and we're just honored to be part of this program. Our purpose this morning is to introduce the Barnstable No Place for Hate Youth Listening Session. We are members of the steering committee of the Barnstable No Place for Hate, which was at the request of John Reed, the president of the NAACP, the Cape Cod branch. The Barnstable No Place for Hate created this youth listening session video in response to our kickoff event in the fall of 2019 that emphasized the needs of young people. So you'll see in this edited version, students and young people, because the original version is actually almost two hours long, but you'll see students and young people who have responded to 3 questions.
I'll do the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The first question that they were asked to answer, have you directly experienced a racial experience? Racial experiences can be described as any event where you believe race has played a role, either positively or negatively. No. Number 2 is, have you witnessed a racial experience as a bystander? What is one thing you would like the caring or trusting adults to do differently in their response to racism? And I must say that the last question is our purpose for being here. The last question for being here is, are you the caring and trusting adults who have daily interactions with young people, and your response matters? You are the caring and responding adults to these interactions that these young people have, and it matters a lot as to how we all interact with these kids. An interesting note is that these young people are experiencing many of the same issues and events that we encountered as children, teens, and young adults. So that breaks our heart, really, when we think about those things that we've encountered and what they encounter now. So
It's still happening.
It's still happening. We need you. You're the lifeline for these kids. And I think they know it, and they've asked for actions from us, from you. And that's really all we can say about that.
Thank you so much, Paul and Nancy. So, and many thanks to Jim Gilbert, who's behind the scenes. And we're going to turn it over to Jim to play the video for us. Thank you.
My name is Tamora Israel, and I will be your facilitator for this Zoom Youth Listening Session on Racism. The purpose of today's session is to understand the youth perspective on racism, why it's important for us, especially the youth, to hear from important people from the community like Nancy and Paul Thompson, senior statesperson representing the Barnstable No Place for Hate. Nancy and Paul?
There's this old expression, out of the mouths of babes come certain truths. And that's, I think, what we need here. And that's maybe what we've been missing, that we haven't heard from or listened to the youth perspective. And so that's what I hope that we'll be able to do, and help that they'll be able to help develop an action plan that we can go forward and just see how much we can do to improve everyone's lives.
Welcome to this event. As an ally, you can help to end this poison that we're living with in the United States of America. We're all the same. We all want the same things. We all love the same way. We all care about the same things. So I just want to say welcome to everybody and thank you for trusting us. For our people, our adults who are here, listen closely because they're going to look for some actions. Mm-hmm. And we're being held accountable. We're not just listening. And those of you who are with us need to start taking notes right away because these young people are not just talking. They want to know what can be done. Thank you.
Each speaker, starting with Marianne Crowley, will address 3 questions here today. What has been your direct experiences with racism? What has been your bystander experiences with racism? And what do you want adults to do to address your experiences? Our first speaker will be Marianne Crowley, a Barnstable High School sophomore. Marianne?
Hi, I'm Marianne Crowley. It's nice to see you all today. I am a Black, Brazilian, and white American girl. I've had many instances when it came to racism, had non-people of color come up to me and try to compare their skin color to me and say that I'm almost as dark as you, or I am darker than you, which to most doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a microaggression and it invalidates my Black ethnicity. I was told multiple times that all lives matter, which most of you know is a phrase used as a counterattack on the Black Lives Matter movement. Or then people would say that they're colorblind or how they don't see color. It negates who I am as a person of color and proves that they are unable to recognize the struggle that a lot of people in diversities face. And it also, once again, proves the privilege that they have to not worry about race. Now, when it comes to adults, I don't think that they realize that racism is the same as it was back when they were younger. And the main core of racism is ignorance. Many of the instances that I've had to face when countering racism, it was from ignorance. And a lot of ignorance comes from being told about racism when they were younger or their surroundings. And if their parents are racist, they'll become racist. And that's just how it is. So if we go and we educate kids at a young age about racism, then they'll better understand it and probably grow up to not be racist.
Our second speaker is Luan Ferreira, a college sophomore at Florida Institute of Technology. Luan?
Hello, my name is Luan, and like she said, I'm a sophomore at Florida Institute of Technology, and I previously attended Barnstable and Sturgis, and I'll be sharing my experience at both of those schools. A little bit about me: I am Brazilian, or I'm actually multi-race, Brazilian, Black, Cape Verdean. My first experience with true racism revolved around my disabilities. While I attended Barnstable High School, they never truly recognized my disabilities and kind of labeled me as a troubled student. They also never put the correct accommodations in place to help me, which kind of resulted in me getting bullied and disciplined for my actions. Some of these students would call me dumb, and I'd go to seek help with my counselor, and I never got help. The school always blamed me for being bullied and never recognized that my disabilities were causing this behavior. I don't think Barnstable High School was a safe place for any LGBTQ students. I never felt safe enough to let anyone know who I really was. I pretended to be someone who I really wasn't. I hid. I acted like someone else. Students would joke around with me saying, "Luan, you're gay." School itself has a negative energy to it, and the racism is rampant in that school, and I feel like the administration does nothing about it. I eventually left Barnstable High School to attend Sturgis, which I thought would be a better option for myself. I had a few racial incidents that occurred during my junior and senior year of high school. And to me personally, I thought those 2 years were probably the worst years of my life. And I also noticed that there's no one in the administration team at Sturgis of color. So having a safe person to go to didn't really exist. I think like having these mandatory, like diverse interactions between students could better off bring everyone together.
Next, I would like to introduce Massachusetts State Senator Julian Cyr.
Thank you, Tamara, and thank you, Nancy and Paul. Good to see you, and especially Mariana and Luan. Thank you for sharing some pretty traumatic personal experiences that you've had in Barnstable schools, both at the high school and also at Sturgis. You know, a number of things that are clearly unacceptable, but I think shows that the work we have to do in our communities in Barnstable and across Cape Cod is very deep, and that no one community or school or environment really is sort of exempt or immune from the really hard work of racial justice. I'll speak to the white folks on the call as a white person, also as someone who is queer, and just want to raise up and thank you, both to Mariana, but especially Luan, for really talking about the intersectionality between racism and homophobia and transphobia. But to the white folks, right? Racism's our problem, right? This is not Mariana or Luan or Tamora or anyone else of color who's either participating in this call or in our communities. This is not their problem. This is our problem. This is something that we have created in a system of white privilege and white supremacy that has benefited white folks at the not only detriment but to a traumatic and unacceptable degree. And the work that we've got to do as white folks is a lot. I think that it starts with listening, which hopefully we're doing today, it starts with saying Black Lives Matter, with saying their names, showing up, or posting something on social media is a start, but it can't end there.
Our third speaker will be Zaid Shepard, Barnstable High School senior and soccer player. Zaid Shepard presents his pre-recorded speech on video.
My name is Zaid Shepard. I was from Jamaica. I came 2 years ago. Yeah, and I love playing soccer. I'm a big guy. I like talking to people. I'm kind. I try to be myself. I was at work. I work in the grocery department. I was at the cashier. Now I switched to the grocery department. And then I was stocking some chips. And then this lady had a paper with coupons for Shaw's. And she was asking a question where can I find this? Where can I find that? I was like, I can help you, man. And she saw that I answered. She was talking to a group. And I answered. I said, I can help you, man. She turned around. I can see the look in her face. I can feel discrimination, just feeding off her. I was like, okay. So I just kept my cool. She had me down. I totally feel like an outsider, for sure. Because when I was in Jamaica, there was people traveling from Jamaica, from the United States to Jamaica to resorts, have fun, all that. But I haven't really seen others, not others like me, but Caucasian people. I haven't seen them. So when I first came, I was kind of shy, low key, because I didn't know how to react, how I would be treated or what. But definitely for sure, I try to put myself out there, even though I'm not from here. I try to put myself out there, trying to get acknowledged, trying to get people to talk to, even though I'm new. So definitely, yeah, I felt like the outsider for sure. Doc introduced me to UKSD. I was like, okay, I try to come. I didn't had it in mind for sure I was gonna go, because I usually tell people I'm going, but I'm not going. I was like, nah, I like soccer. I'll try to fit in. So I went. When I went, it was a whole group of kids. It's not only soccer. It's how you treat people in life. Your thinking, your knowledge. It's not all about soccer, but the soccer comes in with all those. What should I say? All those aspects. Is that right?
Yeah.
Aspects? Yeah, all those aspects. So I know you can't eliminate racism, but for me to see, going to Cape Cod, I want to see more diverse groups, kids from different parts of the country, mixed in together, talking together. So in the future, that would kind of eliminate racism, because once you start young, it builds into you, so you're everyone's family. So yeah, I would say more groups, and I would say support each other. Yeah, I would say support each other, because I'm the type of guy that supports everyone, no matter what. Support each other, be kind. Yeah, I'll if I see that, I'll be so happy.
Our next presenter is Zig Peters. I've worked with Zig before. He is a wonderful writer, performer, drummer, rapper, all-around great artist. Everyone, please welcome Zig Peters.
My experience with racism has been a lot more subtle. While I have been subjected to out-and-out hate speech, most of the racism that I've experienced has come in the form of dog whistle language, or as most people would call it, microaggressions. I never knew that there were auditions, but like I said before, the white student, he was invited to go and play for the pit band. So I was in 8th grade, and 2 kids got into a fight. I actually ended up getting a detention for the fight, even though I wasn't directly involved. I was just there. I was basically at the wrong place at the wrong time. And actually, a couple of months earlier, somebody had started a fight with me. It was a white kid. He had started a fight with me. And keep in mind, I was just defending myself. And guess who ends up being suspended for that one? The only one wasn't the white kid. Now keep this in mind. My father is a tenured English professor at UMass Dartmouth. And for whatever reason, I know the reason, but my English teacher that year decides to try and insinuate that reading at home isn't encouraged by my father. Now, my final thoughts. I hear a lot of adults talk about how they are all for equal opportunity. However, their actions don't reflect their words. I've heard some of the same people talking about equal opportunity who are, in fact, guilty of all of the things that I talked about. What I want from adults, suffice it to say, if you're gonna talk the talk, you have to walk the walk.
Our next poet is pre-recorded video of youth poet Romy Morgan. They're a Cape Cod Community College sophomore.
Criticism and division, it goes deeper down. Now they judge us depending on our religion. It's like we're animals and we must be kept under supervision. Look around you, it's everywhere. Just turn on the television. African American isn't something you can own in your possession. We're confused, scared, and filled with so much aggression. Pulled over. Please, officer, don't shoot. It's a comb that I put in my hair, not a gun that you claim to see me pulling from beneath my chair. How do we all allow this hate to go around in the air? I'm black, you're white. That doesn't make us separate pairs. What about our feelings? It's like you all don't care. George Floyd cried, please. Please, officer, don't hurt me. Please, I can't breathe. You answer me with stop resisting. Clearly there's an issue. Please, at least let me tell my mom that I'll miss you. It seems that a black man cannot walk or drive at a certain time, or he'll be targeted and accused of bringing a 9, or even a weapon of any kind. A black man in America try to get by, try to strive, living life, trying to survive. But the title that's given is a criminal in disguise. Hands up, don't shoot. Put the guns down to save our youth. Unemployment, they'd write if on our foreheads it says deployment. Front lines, so they can take our lives. They say we're a part of society. Lies. Locked up behind bars for the rest of our life. You can see the enjoyment within their eyes. Who am I? A black man in America. I guess that means I'm not supposed to live a great life. Why? Because I'm not white. The land of the great isn't so great because it's not a fairy tale for us. Corona's the only break. At least they'll stay away from us. And even then, they're putting 7 shots within our backs. Please, officer, get off our necks. Leave the door to success open so we can climb up the steps. Thank you. I wish you the best.
Next, I would like to introduce Representative William Crocker.
Some of the things that I have seen already, particularly the last, it's usually always the last thing you remember, but the last video from Romy Morgan, so personal. I was just writing down stream of consciousness stuff, so personal and honest. Yeah, I have to agree with one of the other things, Luan, when he was talking about disabilities are so much harder when you dealing with them when you are a gay man. I guess from what I understand here, what he was saying is that having a disability is hard enough when you are not from this country, and then when you are a gay man, it's just another burden that you have to bear there. And I'm sorry, Luan, for what you've had to go through here, but I'm trying to understand it from a white person's point of view. And one of the first persons that I talked to was John Reed, who was the executive director of the Cape and Islands chapter of the NAACP. And I said to John, we met very early on in this, and we sat down and had a very frank discussion. And I said, John, how do I need to see this as a white man? How do I need to see this? I have difficulty with this. I need to see this, but it's difficult for me. And he said, you just need to look at it from a Black person's perspective. You need to think of it from a Black person's perspective, not from a white person's perspective. You already do that, but you need to be able to look at it from a Black person's perspective. And that's what I'm trying to carry on here. As we move through this situation, as we try to find some common ground in this situation, and once we find that common ground, we can start making progress in that direction.
Our fifth speaker today is Piper Hunt, a high school freshman and youth commissioner with the Barnstable Youth Commission and a student at Ms. Porter's.
Today, I'm here to talk to you about an experience that my mom, aunt, and cousin had while at a peaceful parade. About a month or so ago, the three of them went to the parade in Harwich. A white woman who was there was holding a sign that read, "All Lives Matter." This is extremely disrespectful to the Black community because saying that all lives matter when the call for racial justice is asking that our country uplift Black lives is degrading. My aunt went up to this lady and said something along the lines of, "That sign is very disrespectful." The white lady then retaliated by saying, "You people are never satisfied." The racist lady said to my cousin, "Why don't you go back to Boston?" This was an ignorant and racist comment because many people who live in Boston are of the Black community, but not all Black people live in cities. My cousin said to the lady, "Why would I go back to Boston? I'm from Dennis." Adults in the community now need to be held accountable for their actions.
Our next speaker is Phoebe Papavasilio. She presents her speech pre-recorded.
I have experienced a few times either being in the lunchroom or in the halls and just hearing groups of people talking about the way people look based on their skin color, just their appearance, or something that they might have heard about them and their background or where they're from. And they use very offensive words and sometimes even racial slurs when they're talking about them. And if I don't have a pass and I'm walking down the halls and then say a girl or boy of color or a different race is walking by and they don't have a pass, I've noticed that sometimes the teacher will feel more of the need to stop them and ask why they don't have a pass, and they just let me walk by. So I just think that's not really fair at all. Most people would probably just look at me and say, "Oh, she's white, she's from, I don't know, like Europe or something," but they don't realize that I'm also Asian descent, and then I'm also from Greece mostly. So that's probably how I'd identify myself if somebody had asked me. But since my skin tone is lighter, I don't experience, and I don't have the appearance of somebody who may be Asian. Something I've noticed in my classes, and I usually take AP and honors classes, is that there's not a whole lot of representation of different races and ethnicities and just cultures in my classes. It's predominantly white people who are in my classes. And I just think that's something that Barnstable as a school, or I don't know how we should work on it, but just making sure that everybody's getting the different point of views from people in all of our classes, because I'm sure if we had some people of different cultures and races in my classes, different points would be brought up, especially in our history classes. I think that would help a lot.
Next, I'd like to introduce State Representative Timothy Whelan.
Thank you very much, Tamara. I think it's really important for us to listen. One of the things that I'm enjoying mostly out of this is that I'm living up to what my parents told me, which was God gives you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen more than you speak so that you can learn from other people's experiences. And I think that this is a fantastic example of that. It's a good reminder to me to listen to the youth and to hear your perspectives as well, because you folks are our future. And one thing that really impresses me is the involvement in the issues that I'm seeing from this generation, from your generation. And it warms my heart because it tells me that we're going to have an informed generation that's going to take over after my generation moves on. To do unto others as others would have done unto you, to love one another, because we are all God's children. I think that if we all live by these rules and listen to one another, then we won't have half the problems that we have in this world about understanding each other and caring for one another and appreciating one another, no matter what your background, no matter what your identity is.
Our seventh speaker is Cheyenne Brown, a Barnstable High School senior and member of the Y Achievers. Cheyenne?
My bus stop is like right in front of my house. So we stand there, we see the bus driver, and the bus driver passed us. So my mom had to drop me off at school that morning and complain to the front office that the bus driver passed us. So they said, okay, it won't happen again. Tomorrow morning, just stand in that same spot. The next day, the bus driver did it again. Passed me and my mom again that next morning. So my mom had to call the bus company. She had to call the school and make another complaint about that bus driver because we were standing in the right spot and that man continued passing us every morning. So it was at the final straw, the third morning, she realized that same man was driving the bus and she stopped the man and asked him, why did he keep passing us the next morning? He never said anything to my mom. He just continued on and my mom was like, no, Cheyenne, get off the bus. I don't want to be disrespected or somebody judging me just for my skin color. Me missing the bus for those 4 days, and I was late for school for my first day. I didn't like that either. And it was like really hurtful. So it's like at a point where I'm like in my life, if I ever grow up and have kids on my own, I don't want to tell them no type of steps that they should go through just because they're Black. We should.
Next, I'd like to introduce Town Councilor Deborah Dagwan.
I think that they want us as adults to, they want to share their talents, their ideas, and their passion. And we've heard that today from them. What they want us to do is to engage with them, to stand beside them, and to learn from them. And I think they also would like us to give feedback. Feedback is a function of respect. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Barnstable Police and Community Liaison Officer Brian Morrison, who will make our closing remarks.
Hey, good evening. My name is Officer Brian Morrison. I am a 25-year veteran of the Barnstable Police Department here on Cape Cod. I am currently, and have been for quite a long time, the Community Liaison Officer for both the juvenile and adults in the community, involved in just about every aspect of community service you can think of, and just to bridge the gap between the different diversities of the community with the police department so that we all understand each other better and get along and try to live in harmony. Obviously, we do not live in a perfect world, but as long as we can learn to respect each other and get along a little bit better and understand each other, I think it will go a long way. We are seeing all over the country, there is a lot of systemic racism going on. It has been for a long time. Unfortunately, for my profession, it is at the front line. Is it all over the place? Yes, it is. A lot of the kids have mentioned that they're seeing a lot of racism in the school. And it's a very unfortunate topic, but it needs to be discussed. And I mean, education is key to the success of the children growing up as they go forward, and also just to the success to our country going forward.
Oh, there was language translation. Good.
Wow. That was intense. That was intense. If anybody sitting on this call knows any of those students, and now you're here and this is how these students walk through our buildings, if that doesn't hit your heart, I don't know what's going to. So thank you, Nancy and Paul, for helping to facilitate that. Thank you, Meg, for having our whole district watch this. We're on a equity journey and we're at different places, but you definitely need to reflect and see where you are on that journey. And if you're really dedicated to that journey, and push yourself harder and further. We need to move further, and we need to move further quicker. So as I'm looking at the chat, there's a lot of support for our students, thanking the students for this and for being brave. And some people are uncomfortable, which is why they're saying that they need to hear it. So everybody's listening. If there's any questions that anybody has for Nancy and Paul, it's 8:50. Meg and I will man the chat to ask those questions and get them to Nancy and Paul to answer. Or, well, you always talk to Meg and I. You can ask them to Nancy and Paul. But if there is something pressing, you can actually ask us too. Or if you want something to say that's on your heart, or if there's something that you need, you know that you need from the district to help you advance your journey, please feel free.
So now we have to look at the.
I'll read them to you. I'm getting great presentation. This was great. We're learning from your strong words, young ones. Carry on from a grateful teacher. Thank you for letting us hear this perspective of our youth. It was great to see so many people in the community speaking up. Lots of thank yous in the chat. I think this would be great and important to watch the full version. And I think, do we have that link to the full version that we can share with people?
Yeah, we can provide that, Hope.
Okay. So another comment, although it's not surprising, it saddens me greatly that our students have experienced racism on a daily basis. We need to do better by them, and we need to do more. We need to take action. Thank you for this, Meg. In your email yesterday, you mentioned a report with 53 BHS students. It would be great to have access to that. Their voices need to continue to be listened to. One thing I have to say is I'm proud of our district that we have so many people that have jumped on board. And one of the things in the video that stood out to me is Mr. Peters, who said, if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. And I think we all talk the talk. And I think we're all in a space where we want to do better. But now we got to force ourselves to walk the walk. Thank you for showing us this. This is a very important beginning for our journey. Always hearing from our youth breaks my heart, but it's so important to hear. Our students deserve actions, not words. Thank you for this very powerful learning. Oh, y'all are going too fast. Sorry. If you know me, and technology don't get well. Thank you for showing us this. Okay, here's a question. What do you think are the important action steps for educators to take beyond listening and empathizing? And how do we move beyond performative, Nancy and Paul?
Well, the steps to take. I mean, part of it is I think doing today is one of the first steps to do that is to hear and listen to. I mean, there is a difference between hearing and listening, and being able to do that and to discern what students are trying to tell you, because I mean they tell the truth. It's been my experience that they will tell you the truth, and it may be hard to hear, but it's something to hear. And on that, I would say check in with the students and say, how is it going? You told me this particular incident, and I'm following up with you. And it's a way to say, I care about it. I think about you, and I think about what your well-being, and that's what when Paul says that the teachers are the lifeline. They really are, in terms of how issues that arise, how those can be resolved right then and there, because you or we as educators, we're the ones who are in the space with them for much of the time of their lives. I've never calculated, but we're in their lives of a significant portion. And in fact, some of the things that we do, some have said, affect the next 75 years, if you think about it. So I've had students who've come. Actually, one of the reasons why I said it was time to retire, I had a student come and say, "You taught my grandmother," and I said, "Well, this is." And I began to think about how far into the future what we do, what it affects.
Yeah. And one of the things to remember, we know that teachers are human as well. And sometimes being human, our emotion may be an issue for us as well. Take a breath, continue to listen, head toward the proper, do the proper action, take the proper action, and you'll see that it'll all work out. These are still children, and they become emotional sometimes. We do, and we just take a breath and relax, and it will come together.
Thank you. Here's another question. How do you feel art education helps students of color?
Well,
Well,
you say art?
Education helps students
okay.
of color. Well, I mean, there were laws against it. That's and the fact that we have, which meant that education really is something very important, very crucial to anyone. And the fact that there were laws specifically forbidding people of color from being educated, or there had to be schools set aside for them that were different. I mean, because they've said separate, but it is not equal. So that those kinds of I guess actions and activity tell us that that education is an important thing. It's something that will stay with you, that no one can take from you. You know, they may be able to take other things, but the idea of being educated, having certain knowledge, knowing history, knowing, I was a language teacher, knowing how to communicate to somebody, your innermost thoughts in another language, those are kinds of things that are very important that no one can take from you. And that's, that's the idea of education, being able to continue on with knowledge and being able to use it for your own, for purposes similar to if you need to stand up for yourself, or you need to write, you need to read, you need to do all of those things. It's having a kind of a background in education that allows you an attitude when you need to say, and when you need to say what needs to be said, or you need to do what needs to be done. It's your education that really backs you up, supports you.
And it's certainly an equalizer.
Lots of thank yous, lots of thank yous. I'm just looking for questions.
So Hope, I'm wondering if, like, in the last minute or so, I see there were a couple of comments about what to do if you're an educator, and I'd ask Nancy and Paul, right, and you overhear things in the hallway or in the classroom. What is the best way to sort of?
Well, I've had that experience. I was in high school, and one of the things that I was always in the corridor when students are filing. And if you hear those kinds of things, it needs to be, whoever is doing it needs to be put on notice that we heard it. I heard that, because sometimes people do things and they think no one sees it or hears it. That's the nature of bullying, and that people do it with impunity. So that's part of the reason to be out there, to be out and about with the young people. As they're there, I was there. And to say, look, I heard what you said. That's not acceptable. Those are sorts of things. And I've had students, thank me to say, I'm glad you said something, because they often will not say and call attention, because sometimes it makes matters worse. But for adults, the adults who are around, to be, just to be aware and to say, I see what you're doing. And people know that you're going to pay attention to what's going on.
So As we approach the 9 o'clock hour, I want to thank Nancy and Paul for being here with us today. The Barnstable No Place for Hate organization for putting together the video and helping us discuss these very important topics. Hope, as always, you're such a leader in our conversation, so thank you for all of this. I've seen in the comment sections, folks are wondering what are some concrete steps to help. Each school has an equity committee or folks that are working on the equity imperative in each of our 9 schools. That's where this work continues to grow as well as a district. So Papa, I just will comment quickly on, there's been some comments about restorative justice. We are working on a new code of conduct that brings that in as a philosophy. So more about that in the future. And as we close, thank you to all for watching. Jim tells me we had over 600 viewers today, so that's wonderful. And thank you to our guests, and thank you to the BPS community for continuing this important journey. And most of all, thank you to the students who shared their experiences and perspectives with us.
Would it be helpful if, because there's so many comments and questions in the chat, would it be helpful if I put out a Google sheet to the district and you can put those in there, and if we can answer them, we can answer them? There's so many of them that I don't want people to not have their questions answered. So I'll put out a Google sheet, and I have to figure out to give access. So some of you won't get access because technology and I aren't the best of friends, but I'll put out that Google sheet as soon as we finish with this. And please go in, put some questions in there. And if we can get answers, we'll get answers. Plus it'll give us some data as to what we need to do for PD and what you're looking for to advance us.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.